Right. Sleep. Right. Alright, where to begin? Dad told me the last prioress at Kiersau knew something about the old history of Tassing. He said she became the abbess of a convent in Bologna. Mother Illuminata? Yes, at Santa Margherita. I should write to her. Option 1 of 3 Mother Illuminata, Abbess of Santa Margherita, formerly Prioress of Kiersau Abbey. Option 2 of 3 Mother Illuminata, Abbess of Santa Margherita, formerly Librarian of Kiersau Abbey. Option 3 of 3 Mother Illuminata, Abbess of Santa Margherita. Option 2 of 3 Mother. Option 1 of 2 My name is Magdalene Druckerin. I do not believe we ever met, as I was very young when you left Kiersau. Option 2 of 2 I am the daughter of Klaus Drucker, Magdalene. We are printers from Tassing. Option 1 of 2 My name is Magdalene Druckerin. I do not believe we ever met, as I was very young when you left Kiersau. Player says you were acquainted with my father. He bought many books from the library before that terrible fire consumed the place. I am writing because my father and I are creating a mural in the Tassing Rat House. It's going to tell the history of our community and of Kiersau as well. We have only legends and folklore, since of course all of Kiersau's books were destroyed in the fire. I was hoping you could tell us something about the early history of the town, when the Romans were here. If you know anything about the early history of the abbey itself, we would also be glad to hear of it. We would appreciate any help you could give us and we hope you are well. Option 1 of 4 My father always spoke highly of you, especially how you cared for the sisters after the fire. Option 2 of 4 My father always spoke highly of you, especially how you cared for the library and its books. Option 3 of 4 My father always spoke highly of your piety and intellect. Option 4 of 4 If you would not mind a personal question, was it hard to return to Italy after being here for so many years? Option 2 of 4 Option 1 of 3 Keep well. Option 2 of 3 God bless you. Option 3 of 3 Thank you again. Option 2 of 3 God bless you. Player says Magdalene. Player says if I want to finish the mural before Christmas, I should start planning tomorrow. I should head to bed and get as much rest as I can. Drucker House Upper. Drucker House Upper. Sleep. It's late, I should get some rest soon. Option 1 of 2 Go to sleep. Reichspostman says Mistress Druckerin. I have a few letters here addressed to you. Take care now. Player says thank you, sir. Mother Illuminata wrote back to me. I hope her response helps me paint the mural. Illuminata says Mistress Druckerin, thank you for your letter. I hope this reply finds you and your father in good health. I remember you both, as your father would carry you between the rows of our library in its final years. I also remember your late mother and brother, God keep their souls. While we did have some books that discussed Tassing's past, it's likely they were as mythological as what your neighbors believe. That said, I remember one of the peasants, Tilman Kreutzer, read about the history of the town. I know he died during the revolt, but perhaps his family knows some of what he learned. I should also say that it's not true that all of Kiersau's books were destroyed by the fire. Andreas Mahler managed to save some from the flames, God rest his soul. In the aftermath of that terrible night, cataloging and preserving the surviving books was not at the top of any of our minds. Even so, this topic has stirred a memory within me. Several years before the fire, there was a death at Kiersau, the murder of Baron Rothvogel. He had mentioned something about finding a copy of Historia Tascia, a comprehensive chronicle of your home. I had forgotten about it until now because the murder dominated all of our thoughts in the days and weeks that followed. It troubles me now because I recall that the late Father Matthias was also reading a copy of Historia Tascia shortly before he died. We never accounted for either book's whereabouts. They may have been hidden somewhere in the library and went up with everything else. Perhaps Prior Ferenc took it from the Baron after the murder. Ferenc had an interest in books of all sorts, of course, but it seems like an odd thing to do in the moment. Then again, only God knows what he did and why he did it. My Klaus Haverl, the Baron's manservant, believed it may have been stolen by the town thief, Martin Bauer. If Martin is still alive, I would ask him if he knows where the book is. Hopefully he didn't trade it for a mug of beer on his way out of Tassing. If the man has passed from this world, perhaps his family knows where the book wound up. As for the history of the Abbey, I fear that was also lost in the blaze. However, as sacristan, Prior Matthew learned a great deal about the subject. I have not kept in contact with him, but I know that he is now the Archdeacon of Zion. He is no longer a Benedictine, but uses his family name, Faucini Sauce. If you write to him soon, your letter may reach him before snow covers Valais. Please convey my best wishes to your father. He was a good friend to the Abbey in its better years. Despite the violence that occurred, I hold no ill will toward anyone from Tassing. I pray that you have seen better days since that night, and that God forgives the many errors we made. God bless you as well. Mother Illuminata, Abbess of Santa Margarita. Player says, oh, Esther wrote to me as well. Esther says, my dear Magda. My parents were glad to hear from your father. Please tell him they wish to hear from him soon. Speaking of printing, your ink was well received indeed. I've made several prints with it. They look lovely on the wall. Elisha has taken to making his own ink from scraps he found around the house after he saw yours. Mother was furious when he spent several pfennigs trying to find lapis at the market. She set him scrubbing the floors for it. Took him 3 days. I am glad you're keeping busy, even though it keeps you from visiting. Father says we'll have room whenever you decide to make an appearance. And if you do take over the shop in Tassing, you'll have to make visits to Prague for supplies. Who knows? Maybe you'll meet someone here. I've made a good match, too. Before the expulsion, there was a handsome man at synagogue, Simon, who caught my eye. His father is a merchant, and he's a doctor. He went to the University of Padua. Can you believe it? I'd quite like to marry him, if I can find him again. Anyway, I think you'd have even better luck than me. The boys would swoon at a beautiful blonde artist from the Alps. Please keep us abreast of your father's mural. We'll have to come see when it is finished. Blessings. Esther. Player says I'll have to write Esther back tonight. I should head home and check on Dad. Player says, hey, Dad. How are you feeling? Claus says, Magdalene. Sitting upright is, still a struggle, I'm afraid. The dizziness makes my stomach turn, so I'd rather not eat at the moment. Player says, are you sure? I can bring up something light, like milk, or broth. Claus says, no. I can't stomach anything just yet. But tell me, where are you off to? Player says I need to get started on the first part of the mural today, the old history. Mother Illuminata didn't know much about Tassing's early history, but she did give me a few places to start. I'm going to ask Blacktill if his grandfather told him any stories. Illuminata said he used to read about the Romans. Claus says Mother Illuminata, Magdalene. Option 1 of 2 right, yes. Mother Illuminata. Option 2 of 2 ugh. Fine. Mother Illuminata. Option 1 of 2 right. Claus says young Kreutzer has mentioned those tales from time to time, yes. He comes by to borrow books now and then. Usually when he's found some interesting old ruin out in the fields. You might ask him about that. Il Peter's always harumphed about how no one paid attention to the old ways anymore, too. I'm sure he'll have some stories to tell about old Tassing. You might stop to talk to him. Option 1 of 3, I didn't think of that. Thanks. Option 2 of 3, I can hardly understand him these days, but it's worth asking. Option 3 of 3, but he's so mean. Option 1 of 3, I didn't think of that. Thanks, Dad. Claus says, of course, Magda. It's nice to feel useful, even if I am stuck here in bed. Player says, nonsense. I'm just glad you're awake. Claus says you might talk to Smokey, too. The old charcoal burner seems to know more about what's in the woods around town than anyone else. That, and he's a known gossip. Option 1 of 2, he's always been kind to me when I chat with him. I'm certain he'll know something about the ruins. Option 2 of 2, isn't he a bit eccentric? Option 1 of 2, Claus says you may hear something worth your while, at any rate. Player says I'll go talk to him. What about the ruins or the mines? I can't just use books and stories alone. I want to explore whatever is left over from the Romans and before. The salt mine and Roman ruins are the oldest parts of Tassing, so it only makes sense to see what they left behind. Claus says, you take after your mother. She was always thorough in her research. Player says, you always said that's what good artists do, Dad. Claus says, be careful, alright? I know the twins mess around near the salt mine, but I don't want you getting hurt. I don't know why Yurt doesn't keep them in line. Always making trouble, those two. Option 1 of 3, don't worry about me, Dad. I'll be careful. Option 2 of 3, they don't have brains enough to keep out of trouble. I do. Option 3 of 3, that's what happens when you name your kids after pagan gods instead of saints, I guess. Option 1 of Claus says, good. I still need you to run the press for a little longer, after all. Don't forget your other chores while you're running around town, alright? We still have a household to run. Option 1 of 3, don't worry. I'll get everything done. Option 2 of 3, I'll get to them, Dad. Option 1 of Claus says, that's my girl. Player says, I'd better get going if I want to do all of that today. I'll see you later, Dad. Claus says, good luck, Magdalene. Claus. Claus says, Magdalene. Player says, hey, Dad. How are you feeling? Can I get? Claus says, no, I'm fine. You go on. Player says, alright. I'll come back and check on you later. Claus. Drucker House. Drucker House Upper. Church and Druckers. Drucker House. Martin Bauer at Mill, Our Lady of the Labyrinth. Meadow. Forest. Meadow. Church and Druckers, Golden Hand Inn. Mill. Forest. Lower Abbey. Guest house, even the old guest house is falling apart. Abbott House. Guest house. Upper Abbey. Lower Abbey. Lower Abbey. Shrine. Martha. Convent Garden. Martha. Martha says, oh, hello, Magda. You wouldn't happen to be going to the convent? Option 1 of 2, I wasn't planning to, no. Option 2 of 2, perhaps later. What brings you here? Option 1 of 2, I wasn't. Martha says, never mind, then. Player says, what brings you up here, anyway? Martha says, I don't know if I should talk about this. I'm thinking about joining the Poor Clares. Option 1 of 2, that's a nice idea. Option 2 of 2, why on earth would you want to do that? Option 1 of 2, Martha says, you think so? I'm not sure. Be honest. What do I have to look forward to? With Dad's injury, and me unwed at 25. Older than all the boys in town. If they don't see me as a sister, they see me as a mom. And when Dad dies, not anytime soon, God willing, I won't be able to claim the farm. I'll lose my home. With Anton gone, there's nobody to take it over. Option 1 of 3, you could still get married before that time comes. Option 2 of 3, I understand times are tough, but are you sure this would really make you happy? Option 3 of 3, that's unfair. You should be able to inherit the property. Option 2 of 3, Martha says it would bring me closer to the Lord. Shouldn't we all want that? Why not withdraw from the trials of the world? You know as well as I it's not safe out here. Option 1 of 4, you could do so much more, you just need to be more ambitious. Option 2 of 4, maybe you're right. I've thought about joining the order myself. Option 3 of 4, I don't know what to say. I suppose you should follow your heart. Option 4 of 4, hiding away behind walls doesn't seem like the right way to live. Option 3 of 4, Martha says, can I trust it? It's a nervous and confused thing. Option 1 of 2, as it is often before difficult decisions. Option 2 of 2, if you're not driven by a consuming devotion, it doesn't seem like the nun's life is meant for you. Option 1 of 2 as it. Martha says I suppose so. But joining the Poor Clares is a lifelong commitment. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Option 1 of 2 I think you should join the sisters. Option 2 of 2 I don't think you should join the order. Option 1 of 2 Player says Paul said there is no greater purpose than living a life dedicated to the Lord. I think it's Martha says you do. Player says of course. Not many people have the courage to seek a higher purpose in life, much less go after it. Martha says I suppose you're right. I want to live a life with meaning, and I've always admired the sisters. Dad won't have to worry about me, either. I'll pray about it, but I think it's time I talk to Mother Francisca and the others. So, I will gather my courage. What little of it I have. Player says good luck, Martha. And God bless you. Martha says thank you, Magda. Until later. Be well. Martha. Convent Garden. Upper Abbey. Up Convent Loquarium. Gertrude, Convent Loquarium. Gertrude. Gertrude says God bless you, Magdalene. Player says God bless you, Sister Gertrude. Gertrude says are you doing alright? Father Thomas told us about your father's attack. You were incredibly courageous to run to Dr. Stahl so quickly. Especially when the attacker could have been about. Option 1 of 3 I had to do something. Even if whoever attacked Dad was still there, I had to do something. Option 2 of 3 I didn't even think of that. I acted on instinct. I only. Option 3 of 3 honestly. Option 1 of 3 Gertrude says the Lord was with you that night. I'm thankful you were not in harm's way. I lit an extra votive candle in St. Satia's shrine for each of you this morning. Option 1 of 3 thank you, Sister Gertrude. Dad's spirits have been up, but I know he doesn't have much time. Option 2 of 3 Dad says that the pain has gone down, but Dr. Stahls is worried about a brain hemorrhage. Option 3 of 3 he hasn't been able to get up or walk around without my help. Option 2 of 3 Dad said Gertrude says I might have some psyllium left in the herb hut. If you blend it with broth or warm wine, it will heat his brain and prevent infection. Option 1 of 3 thank you, Sister. I'm grateful for all the help everyone in Tassing has provided. Option 2 of 3 I pray you're right. I'm trying to keep busy with the mural, but sometimes I just want to cry. Gertrude says the Lord hears your tears, Magdalene. Take solace in his everlasting goodness. He will turn this for good, no matter what things look like now. He sees beyond time itself, but we are constricted by the present. I have been around long enough to see his fruits even when I thought the devil had burned the fields. Keep faith, Magdalene. Option 1 of 3 thank you, Sister. Your words warm my heart. Option 2 of 3 I'll do my best. Option 1 of 3 Player says God bless you, Sister. Gertrude says God bless you, Magdalene. Gertrude. Pet son of Mosfanger. Pet son of Mosfanger, Gertrude, Convent Upper Abbey. Player says mugwort is always useful for colds and fevers. Sister Gertrude told me that John the Baptist wove mugwort into a belt to protect him against fatigue in the desert. Upper Abbey, Prior's house. Prior's house. Convent garden. Convent garden. Francisca. Francisca says God bless you. Magdalene. I had been hoping to speak with you. Do you perhaps have a moment? Player says of course, Mother. How can I help? Francisca says I had heard that you had taken up the mural in the rat house after your father's terrible attack. Option 1 of 2 yes, I'm excited to paint the town's history. Francisca says Your enthusiasm and insistence is most troubling to some people in town. Option 1 of 3 I know the council was hesitant at first, but they all agreed I could do it. Option 2 of 3 some people? Option 3 of 3 you wouldn't happen to be including yourself in that group, would you? Option 2 of 3 some people? Francisca says yes, Magdalene. Myself included. I understand how you must have struggled with your mother passing while you were so young. Without a maternal figure to guide you, it is no wonder your spirit has wandered and wavered from its nature. Option 1 of 3 I am not sure what you mean, Abbess. Option 2 of 3 what? Option 3 of 3 my spirit's fine, thanks. Option 1 of 3 I am not sure what you mean, Abbess. Francisca says the pursuit of such trades is not for women, but men. As Paul writes, God calls women to work at home, not in trades. While supporting your father is laudable, taking on his work is imprudent. There are plenty of young men in Tassing worthy of you. Or, perhaps, you have a different calling. I'd like to offer you a place here, among the sisters. Option 1 of 4. I understand you may disagree with my choices, but I'm not going to stop painting the mural, Mother Francisca. Option 2 of 4. My dad taught me how to run the shop, and I love printing. What's wrong with working as a printer? Option 3 of 4. Wait. Who's saying I'm troubling? And how did you hear that, anyway? Option 4 of 4. Well, say option 1 of 4. Francisca says, how unfortunate. I still have high hopes for you, Magdalene. God bless you. Francisca. Convent Garden. Prior's House, Upper Abbey, Convent Aquarium. Convent Garden. Marguerite. Marguerite. Player says hello, Marguerite. It's Magdalene. Marguerite says oh, Magdalene. God bless you. You don't normally come to the convent alone. What brings you here? Not that you're not welcome, of course. It's always wonderful to have visitors. Option 1 of 2. Oh, Mother Francisca was lecturing me about the mural. Nothing. Option 2 of 2. I had some spare time and thought I would say hello. Option 1 of 2. Oh, Mother Francisca was lecturing me about the mural. Nothing that interesting. Marguerite says lecturing you. She is good at that. Almost as good as Father Gernot was. What was she lecturing you about? Option 1 of 2. She was advising me against painting the mural. She thinks I'm called to different things. Marguerite says that sounds like her. I don't think she believes in much work outside of what we need to survive. But even David wrote the Psalms, and he was a man after God's own heart. The poor Clares are so different than the Benedictines. I guess I'm not used to being a poor Clare yet. Player says, do you miss the outside world much, sister? Marguerite says yes, sometimes. I miss the other Benedictine sisters especially. She'd never admit it, but Sister Lisbeth had the most wonderful voice. I always stood next to her if I could. Player says, why stay, then? Why didn't you leave when the Benedictines left Kiersau? Marguerite says, ha. Truth be told, I was too frightened to leave. Kiersau is my home. I didn't like the idea of becoming accustomed to a new place. Learning the convent's ins and outs was hard enough. I never went outside the convent much anyway. I know where everything is here, even if it's changed over the years. Sister Gertrude had already planned to stay, too. The garden always needs tending, and 2 hands make light work. Besides, I can't leave Mosfanger behind. Option 1 of 3. Kiersau is a wonderful place to call home. Option 2 of 3. Of course. She truly is Queen of Kiersau. Option 3 of 3. I can't imagine how drafty and lonely the convent must have been after everyone else left. Option 1 of 3. Kiersau is a wonderful place. Player says, has the convent changed very much since the poor Clares arrived? Marguerite says yes. The food is simpler, and some of the prayers are different. But all the chores and gardening is the same. Gertrude misses making ink for the scriptorium, but I've enjoyed learning the sisters' new customs. Speaking of which, I should probably return to my chores. Player says, of course, sister. Apologies for interrupting. Marguerite says, not at all, Magdalene. God bless you. Marguerite. Convent Garden. Convent Garden. Convent Aquarium. Upper Abbey. Prior's House. Prior's Upper Abbey. Upper Abbey. Martha. Shrine. Lower Abbey. Lower Abbey. Shrine. Upper Abbey. Player says, the hand of St. Moritz. The poor Clares take care of it now that the Benedictines are gone. Upper Abbey. Upper Abbey. Shrine. Martha. Convent Garden. Martha. Shrine. Lower Abbey. Meadow. Lower Abbey. I can smell the anise on the breeze. It reminds me of when I was little. Forest. Forest. Mill. Golden Hand Inn, Church and Druggers. Golden Hand Inn. Mill. Forest. Meadow. Apollo, Shrine of Waterfall. Shrine of Saints Apollo. Apollo says hey, Magdalene. Player says hello, Apollo. What are you doing? Apollo says looking for frogs. Artemis says she saw one the other day, and we're trying to collect a bunch. Option 1 of 2, what do you need the frogs for? Apollo says like I'll tell you. You'll snitch. Option 1 of 2, I won't. Option 2 of 2, if you don't tell me, maybe I will snitch. Option 1 of 2, I won't. Apollo says yeah, right. Sorry Mags, I'm not telling. You'll just have to ask Artemis. Maybe she'll tell you. Player says fine. I'll go talk to your sister. Option 1 of 3, good luck, I guess. Option 2 of 3, but be careful. You've already had to go to confession this year. Option 1 of 3, good luck. Apollo says haha. Thanks, Magdalene. Apollo. Meadow. Smokey's home. Church and Druggers. Smokey's home. Player says it's nice to see some green this time of year. Whorehound is one of Smokey's home. Chorus. Backslop. Smokey. It's nice to see some green this time of year. Whorehound is one of the few plants that grows year-round here. Smokey. Backslop. Backslop says hello. Is there something I can do for you? Knife. Option 1 of 2, I am Magdalene Druggerin. Are you a friend of Smokey's? Backslop says I'd like to think so. I'm Backslop. I'm a tinker. Travel around and help people out with sharpening knives, little things like that. Druggerin. Are you a printer's daughter? Option 1 of 3, I am. My father is a printer. Option 2 of 3, I am the printer. Option 3 of 3, my father and I are both printers. Option 1 of 3, I am. My father is a printer. Backslop says do you sample the wares much? Option 1 of 3, yes, I read books. Option 2 of 3, as often as I can. Option 3 of 3, not as much as you might think. Option 1 of 3, Smokey says Backslop, don't. You're going to get in trouble again. Option 1 of 2, trouble? From me? Smokey says no, not you, Mistress Druggerin. This one can't help but talk to people about all of the strange things he believes. He reads all sorts of books, talks to odd folks, gets ideas brewing in his head. Now that doesn't bother old Smokey none. Bothers some other people a whole lot. Option 1 of 3. Option 2 of 3, it doesn't bother me any. Option 3 of 3 sounds like their problem. Option 1 of 3 who? Backslop says priests. Some people with limited imagination. Smokey says inquisitors. Backslop says 2 inquisitors. No need to overstate the danger. Option 1 of 2, do I want to know what happened? Option 2 of 2, so, books. Strange. Option 1 of 2, do I want? Option 2 of 2, so, books. Strange ideas. Option 1 of 2, do I want to know what happened? Backslop says a long time ago, I got into an argument with some people in town. They told Father Thomas. To his credit, he told them to let it go, but somehow an inquisitor found out. Anyway, I had to leave for a while. Player says so, books. Strange ideas. Backslop says yes. The host. The Eucharist. The bread and wine, body and blood of Christ. Player says Holy Communion? What about it? Backslop says more and more people are writing about rejecting transubstantiation. The idea that the bread and wine of the Eucharist literally becomes the body and blood of Christ. Smokey says here we go. Player says yes. Backslop says well, there are 2 ways to look at it. The first is on the grounds that Wycliffe and Hus rejected it. Using our eyes, our senses, there is nothing perceptible that changes in the character of the bread and the wine. Option 1 of 3, that doesn't mean it hasn't actually changed, though. Option 2 of 3, must our senses necessarily encompass all of God's miracles for them to be real? Option 3 of 3, I suppose that's true. Option 1 of 3 that doesn't mean it. Vaxlov says but that brings me to the second point. Even if the bread and wine turn to Christ's body and blood, why is that necessary for spiritual communion? We are bound by flesh, attempting to reunite with the light of God through the Eucharist. The act, the observance, unites our will with that of Christ. He is present in us through the remembrance, not the physical act. Option 1 of 3 are you following this, Smokey? Smokey says absolutely not, and that's what I'll say if any inquisitors come around. Vaxlov says are you ready to hear why it's important to disbelieve in transubstantiation? Option 1 of 3 sure. Why not? Option 2 of 3 yes. I'm certain this is leading somewhere good. Vaxlov says I can't tell if you're being sarcastic, but alright. This all starts with Lucifer creating the world. Option 1 of 3 excuse me. Option 2 of 3 Jesus Christ. Option 1 of 3 excuse. Vaxlov says God was the Word, and the Word was truth, and truth is light. The light is God's will. God's light contained aspects, what we consider angels, facets of his infinite intellect. One of these aspects separated itself from his intellect, and manifested in the darkness as the corrupt will, Lucifer. Option 1 of 2 the darkness. Option 2 of 2 say nothing. Option 1 of 2 the darkness. Vaxlov says to exist outside of the boundaries of God's infinite light, the corrupt will brought into being an equally infinite darkness. Within that darkness, Lucifer cast his false light, a corrupted imitation of the divine intellect, to create the world. All material in our world is inherently a corrupted manifestation of that false light. We still have a connection to God through our intellect, but it is flawed by existing in our physical bodies. Option 1 of 4 so Genesis is wrong. Option 2 of 4 was Jesus flawed by being a man even though he was born of a virgin? Option 1 of 4 so Genesis is wrong. Vaxlov says there are many stories of creation, many versions even of Genesis. Why is it you believe yours is the correct one? You believe the one your church has given you. Maybe if you were given another, you would have believed that instead. Option 1 of 3 was Jesus flawed by being a man even though he was born of a virgin? Option 2 of 3 but you still believe we can be redeemed through Christ, right? Vaxlov says well, of course. Smokey says finally, some sense. Vaxlov says, but not in the way that you think. Smokey says of course not. Vaxlov says the way to be redeemed is to reunite our will with God's. Option 1 of 2 how do we do that? Vaxlov says regular prayer, abstention from material desires, sublimation, and elimination of want. Smokey says that just sounds like being a monk. Vaxlov says no. Priests and monks both are corrupt agents of the business of the church. They have taken the simplicity of holy devotion and profaned it with pageantry. The saints, too. All this talk of Moritz and Sasha and miracles, they're just stories. The church has led people astray, put the hope of people in meaningless rituals, faith in relics. Option 1 of 3 I don't think so. I believe what Father Thomas teaches is the true gospel. Option 2 of 3 I can see why you don't go into town much. Vaxlov says no one really wants me in town, anyway. They want me to fix their knives and their pots and little things and be on my way. And that's fine with me. I've seen so much of the world, learned so many things. I've made so many friends that I hope I'll see again if I come their way. Anyway, thank you for indulging me, Magdalene. Option 1 of 3 it was illuminating. Option 2 of 3 of course. Vaxlov says until later. Player says until then. Vaxlov. Smokey. It's nice to see some green this time of year. Whorehound is one of Smokey. Smokey says good day, Mr. Struckering. Player says I told you, Smokey. Call me Magdalene. Smokey says old habits, I suppose. What brings you to my corner of the woods? More gossip. Option 1 of 3 yes, actually. But option 2 of 3 only ancient gossip. I was wondering if you knew anything about the old pagan and Roman mines. Option 3 of 3 as much as I'm curious, no. I'm option 1 of 3 yes, actually. But first, I wanted to ask you about the old salt mines. Smokey says the mines. Is this a new interest of yours, Magdalene? I don't see the townsfolk trek out there as much anymore. Last I saw were those two twins, making trouble. They know a way in, but I'll be damned if I ever set foot close to that place. What are you so interested in over there? Player says the mural in the rat house needs a section about the earliest days of Tassing. The mines are the oldest part of Tassing, and you keep a keen ear. I thought you might have heard something. Smokey says I don't know about getting down into the mines, but I do know a fair few stories about them, and the other Roman ruins around here. The old stories my father used to tell me when he was the burner of Tassing. The one about Mars and Tasha, the nymph, was always my favorite, so I blame that on my youth. Player says Tasha. Like Tassing. Smokey says MMHM folk named the town after a pagan god. A Roman one, at that. I don't mind telling you the tale, Magdalene, but I warn you, it's a bit boggy. Option 1 of 3. Count me curious. Option 2 of 3. Well, I need something about the Romans to paint on the mural. Option 1 of 3. Count me curious. Option 3 of 3. I don't need to hear those parts. Option 1 of Smokey says ha. I won't be scandalizing you. Can't have your father hounding me for any coarseness. But I'll tell the decent bits of what I remember. Option 1 of 2. Alright. What's the story? Smokey says well, legend says that Mars was hunting in these woods and spied a fat boar for the taking. He just pulled back his spear when he heard a woman scream in terror. Of course, the creature ran off, and the god was angry at the loss of his quarry. So he tramped through the woods to see why a woman was in the forest, and not in the local town. Option 1 of 2. Why would a god be hunting in Tassing's forest? Smokey says how should I know? Maybe he just wanted a brisk walk. Besides, why should anything the gods do make sense? These were the old days, when spirits and ghosts prowled. Option 1 of 3. What do you mean, proud? Option 2 of 3. You're just trying to scare me. Option 3 of 3. Ghosts aren't real. Human spirits go to heaven or hell, they don't stay on earth. Option 1 of 3. What? Smokey says proud. You know, like spirits and other evil things do. I can't just say they walk through the woods like you or me. They proud. Player says alright, keep going. Smokey says so. Mars found an imp, Tasha, bathing in a spring with a fat, ugly satyr goading her from the shore. Enraged at seeing the trapped nymph, Mars transformed into a wolf and slew the satyr. And in return, well, Tasha bathed the god. Heh. Option 1 of 3. They. Option 2 of 3. I see. Option 3 of 3. I get it. They bathe. Option 1 of 3. They. Smokey says in a manner of speaking, yes. When Mars left the pool, he dripped onto the ground, and it blossomed with flowers and crops. They say that's why this valley is so fertile. Option 1 of 3. That might be tricky to paint on the mural. I'm not sure if the council would approve. Option 2 of 3. Oh my. Option 3 of 3. Did you make that up? How do I know that's a real legend? Smokey says tell me, what makes a real legend, Mr. Struckerin? I can tell you it's older than any other story I've ever heard. So much of what the Romans left behind was destroyed over the years, but I like that we still have these tales. You can never really destroy stories as long as there are people to tell them. Of course, the Romans left a hell of a lot behind, too. The town is more Roman than Bavarian, really. Option 1 of 3. Well, we are a part of the Holy Roman Empire. Option 2 of 3. Because of how long it was a Roman colony. Smokey says that, and how much of the town is built upon the Roman foundations. Tassing is actually much smaller now than it was in the Romans' day. At least, the ruins go deep into the forest, and all the way to the old mine. Half of Tassing is built on Roman stone. Take a walk around town and you'll start noticing things. We used their stone to build. The old temple by Satia Shrine has grown over, but the aqueduct runs for miles. Even the abbey used to be an old Roman fort. You can see some of the Roman paved stones under the road if you look hard. We may not be Roman, but this town is. Option 1 of 3. Tassing has been building upon itself for hundreds of years. What a beautiful idea. Option 2 of 3. I never realized how much we relied on the Romans for our infrastructure. Option 3 of 3. Old stones aren't much of a legacy. It's all rubble now. Reuse. Option 2 of 3. I never. Option 1 of 3. Tassing has been. Option 2 of 3. Option 3 of 3. Old stones aren't much of a legacy. It's all rubble now. Reused and forgotten. Option 1 of 3. Smokey says that's the way of things. Most people don't notice the old stones. Too busy in town to notice what's right in front of their eyes. Player says, maybe I should go take a look at the mine. I'd get a better sense of what things were actually like. Smokey says haha. Nothing will stop you, I see. Well, I won't either. Just keep an eye for any wolves or satyrs you might see down there, Option 1 of 2. I'll let you know if I see any. Thanks for your help. Smokey says good luck, Magdalene. Be safe, Smokey. Vaxlock Forest. Meadow. Apollo. Shrine of Waterfall. Shrine of Saint Satia. Artemis. Options. Main menu. Cancel.
Recognizing result CO. Pentiment. Recognizing CO. Pentiment. Recognizing CO. Pentiment.
Options. Main menu. Cancel.
Recognizing result November 6th, 1543. 6th hour. Return to main menu. Your game was last saved 23 seconds ago. Pentiment.
Options.